College in St. Paul, Minnesota, a master's degree in international development from Syracuse University, and a doctorate in government from Cornell University. Since joining the ODU faculty in 1995, Dr. Adams has served in numerous positions at the university and is currently chair of the Department of Political Science and Geography. His teaching and research areas include international political economy, international development, globalization, and Latin American politics. He has written numerous books and articles on these topics, as well as various journal articles, book chapters, essays, and reviews on international development, foreign assistance, multilateral development banks, Latin American politics, and inter-American relations. So ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the World Affairs Council, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Francis Adams.
Good morning, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here on a Saturday morning with you to participate in this Great Decisions lecture series. I am especially grateful to President Larry Balcom, President Emeritus Ralph Nara, the people who worked specifically on organizing this Great Decisions lecture series, Regina Karp and Cindy Miller, Gabrielle Blake and Jeffrey Mistich, and all the members of the World Affairs Council who every year are doing an awful lot of things to increase international awareness and activities here in the Hampton Roads area. I have participated in this program previously a few years ago, and I was talking to Larry earlier about the last time I was here. It was a broader kind of focus on Latin America as a whole, and that seems appropriate. I do teach Latin American politics at ODU. And this week is more specifically focused on Mexico and U.S.-Mexican relations. I'm not a particular expert on Mexico necessarily. I have spent time doing research in the country. I have spent time certainly in Mexico City and surrounding areas, in Guadalajara, in Culiacan here on the West Coast, and especially in the border region here, with Texas and with California as well. So I have some background in the country, but I imagine that many of you also have background, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas about relations with our neighbor to the south. When we think about Mexico, the first couple of topics that seem to come to mind are immigration and drug trafficking, and so I will spend some time on those two topics this morning. But before getting into the whole question about immigration and drug trafficking, I thought I might just give a little bit of background information about the country, the politics in Mexico, and economic relations with the United States. Mexico is a federal republic with a presidential system. The president is elected for a 6-year non-renewable term. There is a bicameral Congress with a Senate and a Chamber of Deputies. Senators are elected for 6-year terms, and members of the Chamber of Deputies are elected for 3-year terms. For the longest time, Mexico was ruled by the Party of the Institutionalized Revolution, the PRI, for the longest time. Founded in 1929, the PRI really dominated Mexican politics for the remainder of the 20th century, right up to the year 2000. So about 70 years we had a single-party state, really, in Mexico. We had all of the presidents of Mexico being from the PRI party, and the Congress as well being dominated. And many of the state legislatures, the governor's positions throughout the country, were people from the PRI party. It was a very effective system for maintaining power and control in Mexico, largely because it was able to incorporate many of the different sectors of Mexican society. So you had the different labor groups, the peasant association, business groups, professionals, people who worked in a range of different sectors within Mexico who were affiliated with the PRI party. Those were kind of the official groups that were recognized by the PRI, and those were the groups that then benefited from the distribution of state resources. So they were able to manage and retain support from these various sectors throughout Mexico through kind of a clientelist system in which national resources were distributed to supporters. There were also times in which fraud was used in electoral processes, and to some extent, but not a great extent, there was repression of people in Mexico and human rights violations. Not nearly the type of repression that we've seen in other parts of Latin America, especially in the Central American region, but it was something that did occur in Mexico as well. It was the only major Latin American country that did not experience a military coup during the post-war period. And Mario Vargas Llosa, the Peruvian author, once referred to Mexico as the perfect dictatorship, manages to maintain power for all of that time with relatively low levels of actual repression. That continued, as I say, until the year 2000 when the PRI actually lost the presidential election. It was Vicente Fox, the National Action Party, that managed to gain the presidency in that year. The problem for the PRI is that there was a breakaway group, the Party of the Democratic Revolution, that broke away from the PRI and kind of split the vote. So the PRI ended up with 36% of the vote, 17% went to the Party of Democratic Revolution, and most of that 17% came from the PRI. And so the PAN, the National Action Party of Vicente Fox, was able to squeak through with 43% of the vote and win the election. We see Vicente Fox here at the inauguration. And the last PRI president, Ernesto Zedillo, I think that the expression on his face pretty much sums up the feeling of most of the people in the PRI about what had just happened here. They did manage to take the 2006 election as well. Felipe Calderon was elected again from the PAN, and this time the PRI actually came in third. The Party of the Democratic Revolution, this breakaway group, ended up actually taking 35% of the vote, and the PAN took about 36%, so it was very close, and then the PRI came in third with 22%. So what we've seen is a real change in Mexican politics, a movement toward more of a multi-party political order. The PRI has high hopes for the election coming in about 6 months. We have an election in July of this year, and the PRI is hoping that its candidate, Enrique Peña Nieto, is going to be successful. He's currently leading in the polls, and the hope here is that the PRI is going to be returning to power once again. They're also quite optimistic about their chances in regaining control over the Congress. In terms of the economic relations with the United States, this is something that is often forgotten, I think, in terms of the closeness of the two economies and really the substantial economic relations that we have with Mexico. Mexico is the third largest trading partner of the United States after Canada and China. Mexico is the second largest supplier of crude oil to the United States after Canada. There's about $1 billion worth of goods that crosses the U.S.-Mexican border every day. U.S. exports to Mexico each year are about $130 billion, which is more than half of all the imports to Mexico. And Mexican exports to the United States each year are about